The U.S. could be short 2.1 million manufacturing workers by 2030. China cracks down on AI with mandatory labels. Switzerland launches a transparent ChatGPT alternative. And the AI boom without a buyer. What if no one pays? Welcome to #Trending. I'm your host, Jim Love. Today's show takes a little bit of a different framing. It's based on news stories, but for whatever reason, the stories I researched today raised more questions than answers, and I'd just like to cover them. By 2030, the U.S. could be short 2.1 million manufacturing workers, costing the economy about $1 trillion a year in lost productivity. That shortage isn't about old-style factory jobs. It's about the new roles that automation creates. I talked yesterday about how AI is hitting tech jobs and white-collar workers particularly hard. There have been a number of estimates ranging from 6 to 7% of workers displaced to 30% or more, with jobs in customer service, marketing, finance, and even parts of management on the chopping block. Some projections estimate that AI could automate up to a third of banking and financial services tasks, which would devastate the workforce in New York and Toronto and other banking capitals. Some people have dared suggest that a company could be run by one person if it was automated. And automation isn't sparing other areas like manufacturing, but it is transforming it. Today's factories don't need assembly line workers. They need engineers, technicians, maintenance specialists who can program, repair, and optimize automated systems. These are the jobs that are currently going unfilled, and in the future, there'll be a devastating lack of resources in this area. Apple's Tim Cook once said that in the U.S., if you advertised, you'd be lucky to fill a hotel room with qualified tooling engineers. In China, you could fill several football fields. That about sums up the imbalance and the lack of preparation in the U.S. economy. So the U.S. is facing a double whammy. Office jobs disappearing under AI, while new, more technical factory jobs are created faster than workers can be trained to fill them. The real crisis in that case isn't automation replacing people. It's that the workforce isn't keeping pace with the new jobs that automation demands. The new term, and I'm sure you've heard it, AI slop. It's a nickname for low-quality, mass-produced AI content. Videos, images, even articles created with little regard for accuracy or even coherence. It's everywhere, from YouTube shorts about anthropomorphic cats to bizarre space baby dramas. And astonishingly, 9 out of the 100 fastest-growing YouTube channels in July of 2025 featured only AI-generated content. One channel, Super Cat League, pulled in nearly 4 million subscribers in no time. In the West, most of us have just shrugged. Some channels are being demonetized or removed, but there's no sweeping fix yet. China, however, is taking a different path. It's the first major country to pass a law that forces AI-generated content to be labeled. As of September 1st, Chinese platforms like WeChat, Douyin, and Weibo must attach visible watermarks and metadata tags so that both users and algorithms know what's AI made. Users can flag wrongly labeled posts, and regulators can penalize platforms that fail to comply. The contrast is stark. Western platforms are struggling under a flood of AI slop, while China has set up a legal framework to label it and contain it. On September 2nd, Switzerland unveiled its own antidote to black box AI, a fully transparent, open-source large language model developed by EPFL, ETH Zurich, and the Swiss National Supercomputing Center. But this isn't about competing with Silicon Valley on features. Apertus is a message. Transparency matters more than novelty. Every line of its code, training data, Documentation, model weights, and even the training recipe is publicly available under an Apache 2.0 license. Now, technically, it's ambitious. Apertus comes in two sizes, one about 8 billion parameters and the other about 70 billion parameters. And it's been trained on 15 trillion tokens across 1,000 languages, including Swiss German and Romansh. It's optimized for Swiss values, privacy, sovereignty, and trust. It's built using carbon-neutral energy on Switzerland's Alpine supercomputer, and it's designed to meet EU data protection and Swiss regulatory standards. In other words, Switzerland isn't racing to match every shiny AI release. It's setting a different bar entirely, one grounded in oversight, ethics, and public trust. And speaking to our Minister of AI, are you listening? AI is soaking up billions in investment. We did a story yesterday about $13 billion that Anthropic had raised in the past week. I read another story this morning that said more or less, why don't the investors just burn this money? Now, I'm not that cynical, but AI is soaking up billions in investment. And the cash flow picture for many companies is showing some stress cracks. Since 2023, the Big Four, Amazon, Meta, Alphabet, and Microsoft, have seen their net income jump 73%. But their combined free cash flow fell 30%, down to about $40 billion, which sounds like a lot, but that's for those four companies. Profits are up, but spendable cash is shrinking as data centers and AI chip bills soar. Meta's profits rose, but its free cash flow dropped 22%, with AI capital expenditures expected to double again in 2025. Amazon's free cash flow fell by 2/3 after a surge of AI spending at AWS. Analysts warn that these companies are being valued like nimble software firms, while they're operating more like infrastructure builders, burning cash on hardware before the payback is clear. In fairness, Amazon has done this before. When it launched AWS, the company spent heavily, ignoring profits, and built the dominant cloud business. But here's the difference. Back then, Amazon was alone in playing that strategy. Today, every major tech player is making the same AI bet at the same time. That means massive spend with no guarantee of who, if anyone, actually wins. Curiously, Apple, who we've criticized for being too slow to the game, may actually have the advantage here. While rivals are spending aggressively, Apple's AI rollout has been more cautious. In 2024, it still generated $109 billion in free cash flow. Remember that $40 billion. Of all of those other companies, Apple generated $109 billion in free cash flow, even more than its net income. Some analysts suggest that Apple might get the last laugh if others bleed cash without finding sustainable revenue. So we're left with a paradox, or at least a question. AI hype is real, adoption is broad, and the technology works. But unless users or enterprises start paying enough to cover these enormous costs, the AI trade could unravel, not because of the science, but because the business model never added up. Right now, most of the big companies are giving away AI to consumers without a real model for how they're going to recover that cost. There is some salvation in the enterprise, and Anthropic and OpenAI and perhaps others have benefited from that. But there is a question. With a recent MIT study saying that only 5% of companies were showing a cash return, will they keep investing in AI at the level necessary to keep the cash flow going? Great question. And if they don't, well, AI could unravel, not because of the science, not because people didn't think it was popular, but because the business model just couldn't add up. Short term, or long-term, there could be a reckoning coming. And that's our show. If you like what we're doing, please share the show with others and give us a like or a comment on your favorite podcast app or site. We're found everywhere: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and more. We're still fighting the good fight with Google and sometimes with Alexa, but I hope we'll have that conquered soon. Love to hear from you. You can reach me at technewsday.ca or .com. Just go to the Contact Us page. And if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment under the video. I love to see them. I'm your host, Jim Love. Have a thrilling Thursday.